On this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast, we'll be discussing the lyrics to Play in the Sunshine, a breath of fresh air that we get as a reprieve from the serious lyrical content of the sign of the times. Joining me on this episode again is Rhonda Nicole. Welcome back to the show, Rhonda.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Jason.
Yes, glad to have you back. You know, you were on the show just a few episodes ago with Another Lover Hole in Your Head, but I asked you if you would join me for Play in the Sunshine. One of the main reasons because I know that you covered this song on the Prince Twitter thread series that we've been kind of doing, and we wrapped it up for the Sign of the Times and Sign of the Times Deluxe Edition songs just a couple months ago, but we did that throughout the second half of 2020 into 2021. And you covered this song, so I felt like, hey, Rhonda must like this song if she chose this song to cover in a whole thread, whole thread series. So happy to have you here to talk Play in the Sunshine.
Thank you. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really fun song, as I alluded to in the introduction. Sign of the Times, the lead-off song on the album, is certainly a really serious song from a lyrical perspective. It's very stark in its musicality. Play in the Sunshine is like the complete opposite of that, from a tonal standpoint, from a lyrical standpoint, musical standpoint, and it's a good way for Prince to show kind of like the yin and yang of life, with life having lots of different paths that we go down as human beings. We can have a really bad day one day and then just push that aside and try to enjoy life in spite of what some of the kind of the crap that surrounds us on a day-to-day basis, or make our lives more difficult than it needs to be. It was recorded in November of 1986, which kind of means that it was one of the last songs, I guess, that you would say was recorded for the Sign of the Times album. The Revolution had already been disbanded, and it was, earmarked for Crystal Ball, as most songs off the album were. It wasn't the last song recorded for the album, but it certainly was towards the tail end of recording songs for what was supposed to be Crystal Ball and ends up Sign of the Times. And I guess another thing I wanted to note is this is just another solo Prince song. He did all of the music and the singing and instruments, with the exception of just some background vocals as you hear throughout from Susanna Melvoin. But besides that, it is a solo Prince song, which makes sense because at that point he had really no band. He hadn't really formulated the Sign of the Times / Lovesexy band yet. He was still working on creating that, and the concepts around that band was still pretty fresh, I imagine, as he hadn't even finished the album yet, let alone decided on a tour. So for you, Rhonda, what are some of your, just before we get into the lyrics, what does this song do for you personally? Does it make you happy? Is it, what is it, as far as its track listing, and as far as your perception of the song and enjoyment of the song? You want to offer some thoughts on that?
Sure. First of all, it does make me happy. I specifically relate this song to when it came out, and I think we talked about on the previous episode that we're around the same age, so we were tweens, if you will. So when the Sign of the Times album came out in 1987, I was 12, and so it definitely is a song that is seared into my mind because of that time. But it was also a song that I remember dancing to it around my room. And of course, like so many other Prince songs that you hear when you're relatively young, the lyrics and the meaning can change as you get older. But Play in the Sunshine has definitely always been a happy sounding song to me. And so if I'm driving in my car and it comes on, I always find myself smiling and, turning it up a little bit, because it just really inspires that feeling of lightness and fun and dance around your room and all that kind of stuff for me still to this day.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And that's why I think it's a great follow-up track to Sign of the Times, for that reason. So it kind of tells the listener, if you're listening to this album, as it's, meant to be played through the track listing as Prince arranged it, you've got the opening song really grabs your attention, speaking of all the social ills, but then on the next song, he wants to lighten the mood a bit and
Mm-hmm.
make sure that listeners know that, no matter how awful the world is right now, you still have an opportunity for happiness. It isn't, you're not doomed to, live your life with all of the knowledge of what's going on around you that will overtake your mood. You can choose to still be happy if you find that sunshine, I guess, is kind of the way I look at it. And having those two songs back to back certainly makes that point very strongly, I think.
Definitely.
All right, so as we mentioned, very bouncy, very joyous song, and the lyrics are going to reflect that for sure. The the lyrics of this song, as we were kind of talking about ahead of time, there's a lot of references to just having fun, enjoying life, and there's actually a lot of lyrics to the song, period. So there's multiple verses that he goes through and he sings them in quick succession. So there's not a lot of musical breaks in the first half of the song. Second half of the song, then, he takes a little more time to explore some different musical ideas that he wants to flesh out. And, it goes a lot of different directions musically, which is cool, which also adds to the fun of the song, the overall fun of the song. But most of the lyrics are really kind of upfront in the first half of a fairly long song for what it is. It's like at least 5 minutes, about 5 minutes, give or take. And with that, I think we should probably get started since we do have quite a few lyrics to go through.
For sure.
All right, so right off the bat, I mean, the first thing he does in this song is he kind of says that "ooh, doggy," and that's how he kicks the song off. So right there, that this is not going to be Sign of the Times Part Two. It's not even going to really be like a really somber love song, or a song that's going to pull at your heartstrings. It's not designed to do that. It's designed to have fun, and you get that a sense for that within the first couple seconds of the song. We want to play in the sunshine. We want to be free without the help of a margarita or ecstasy. We want to kick like we used to. Sign up on the dotted line. We're going to dance every dance like it's going to be the last time. So that's like the first grouping of lyrics. We'll call it the first verse for lack of a better term. So like in this opening verse, you kind of get the impression that playing in the sunshine, because that's how the first line of the song proper, we want to play in the sunshine, is a bit of a metaphor for just, kind of being free. You could literally go outside and play in the sunshine, and that in theory can make you happy because, if you live in an area where the sun is not that common, Minneapolis, for example. Getting out there when the sun does shine is an important mood lifter. But if you live in a place where it's sunny more times than not, you might just take that to mean something else completely different, and just like get out of your rut, I guess, and find some happiness. Be free with yourself and in your thoughts and in your body and your actions. So what are some other like lines in this first section or words that you wanted to kind of point out? I mean, I have a couple, but I want to let you get started on this one, Rhonda.
Something that has always stood out to me is that little part, without the help of a margarita or ecstasy. Um, and one of the reasons for that is because obviously kind of throughout Prince's discography, there's on some level, one, there's always this emphasis on having fun and being free and just, kind of getting out of your head and all of that. And then, you've got sprinkled throughout his catalog songs where you have a bit of cautionary verbiage, I guess, about drugs and drinking and things of that nature. So he's never really used those references as a personal thing, like some artists might do.
Hmm.
But more so like we don't need those things in order to have fun. But it's also honestly, it's kind of a weird, combination of things like margaritas and ecstasy. Is that even like really? Those are the
Yeah.
like what made him think margarita? Because to me, like it's just such a weird, curious little selection of, of all the beverages to list, this is what we're going to come up with, as opposed to it being a little bit more general, like wine, or even just saying, alcohol. So that's always interesting to me. And then the part about sign up on the dotted line, because I've never really understood what that meant. I've never known if there was a specific literal meaning to that. But I've always liked it because it feels like it's like a lot of other things that Prince has done, where he's inviting everybody to do it, inviting whoever wants to be part to be part. And so, I'd always be curious to know what specifically sign up on the dotted line refers to. But even without knowing the specifics, I think that it gives the notion that everybody who wants to be in this fun excursion adventure that we're having is welcome.
Yeah, the sign up on the dotted line gives me images of like Prince teaching a fun and funk class, and he needs people to sign up to join.
Fun and funk, I like that.
Yeah, the fun and fun class with Prince as your professor. But yeah, it does kind of speak to like you need to. It's not just going to happen for you. You need to actively go for it, and just like signing up for a class or going forward and doing anything in life, you have to be the driver of that more times than not. Sometimes you're pushed, but most of the time you have to want to do it. And what better analogy to use than say you have to sign up on the dotted line, because nobody's going to take your hand and force you to sign your name. You have to sign up for it yourself. And if you sign up for this experience or whatever Prince is going to take us on in this song, you're going to be rewarded, I guess, is what kind of I get out of that as well.
True.
Going back to the alcohol or drugs comment, yeah, the margarita line is funny, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of the use of the word or the drink daiquiri, banana daiquiri specifically, in Another Lonely Christmas, which is another kind of really bizarre, odd drink to choose. I mean, I can't imagine drinking enough banana daiquiris to make myself physically ill like he does in that song. I mean, and right. Margarita, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, if they're really strong, you don't need that many, I suppose. And margarita is just a fun word. It's not as boring as beer or wine. It's true. It's got multiple syllables, and it's just a fun word. And ecstasy.
It fits within the structure of the song lyrically.
Yeah. And just saying ecstasy as opposed to just generic drugs, sure. I mean, it's fun to pick a drug, a party drug of choice, and say you don't need this, which is fine. And yeah, absolutely, that's a common theme. It's not like Prince never talks about alcohol, not less so drugs, but like ever talks about alcohol. There's usually some sort of common theme throughout his career where he has made a point in certain songs, and it's lasted, like I said, his whole career, where he wants to make sure you understand, in his opinion, that's just extra. That is not needed in order to do whatever it is that you want to do in life. So
yeah, for sure.
All right. And just we're going to dance every dance like it's going to be the last time. It's kind of like just another way of saying live life to the fullest, really. I don't really get much more beyond that, but it is just another fun way of saying live every day to the extreme.
And it feels too like it connects with 1999 in that sense, which is a little bit more apocalyptic, and not necessarily, I guess, especially if you really, really understand where he was going lyrically with 1999, it was far more cautionary than it was, let's just party. But you still get that same idea of any day, all of this can end. So every time we have the opportunity to just find that joy and that freedom, we should just milk it, kind of taking it to that extreme of just partying until you just can't anymore, and enjoying yourself until you've just exhausted that energy. I get the same vibe from that line.
Yeah, very much so. All right, so then he goes straight into another section of lyrics, and those lyrics are, we got to play in the sunshine, turn all the lights up to 10, I want to meet you, kiss you, love you, miss you, do it all over again, do it all over again. And this is where you kind of first hear Susanna's backup vocals. So I was trying to do, I was trying to do the Prince and the Susanna vocals there.
Of course.
Because
Don't
why
we
not?
all?
You know.
We always sing all the parts.
Yeah, you got to sing all the parts exactly. The background vocals are there for a reason. Okay, so yeah, here these first like three, we're gonna call them three verses. He does mention playing in the sunshine in the very first line. He doesn't say it exactly the same any of the times. It starts with "We want to play in the sunshine." This version is "We got to play in the sunshine." So it goes from a want to a need almost.
Yeah.
And again, it's just kind of expanding on the themes of the first verse with lines like "turn it up to 10," or he says "turn the lights up to 10," which I don't know. My lights don't have number. There's no dial on my lights at my house. I don't know if you do, Rhonda, but I mean, I can see like a volume knob turning it up to 10 or something like that, but that's usually where I hear that term. But hey, you know, I guess if you want to turn the lights up to 10, I guess that makes it just means that it's really bright, you know, and it's going to really shine bright like the sun potentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Then the whole miss, kiss, love, or no, meet, kiss, love, miss. It's interesting because that's really kind of just speaking about the life cycle of a relationship, right? I mean, and he's not saying it in a way that's wistful. It's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to meet you and I'm going to kiss you and love you. And then I'm going to eventually miss you because you're going to go away. But I really enjoyed that ride. You know, it was a great ride. Let's do it all over again.
And we'll do it again.
We're going to do it again because, you know, it was falling in love is supposed to be fun, you know, and that experience of loving, even though often ends in loss at the end of, you know, whatever, the end of the relationship, end of your life, it's worth it, I guess, is what he's trying to say. It's all worth it at the end. Mm-hmm. That's what I get out of it, at least.
Definitely. And I love that little section of, you know, meet you, kiss you, love you, miss you. One, just because it's cute, you know, and it's so light and unexpected, both within the context of the song and even just, you know, in the larger context of some of Prince's other writing. So it's just a really interesting way to your point, to talk about the life cycle of a relationship. And then it also leaves you with the opportunity to say, now, are we, you know, doing this with the same person over and over again? You know, until next time, or is it new? And which, you know, either way, it's cool. But again, it's also that hopefulness of we will have this relationship and we will have these moments, and then it will happen again for both of us in some other setting at some other time. And, you know, there's something really hopeful and optimistic about that I kind of love now that I'm thinking about it in that sense. That's really sweet and a beautiful thought.
Yeah, I like it almost as somebody who's been married for almost 20 years. I like the idea of applying that concept to a long relationship, not just saying like, oh, okay, well, this is going to be the relationship cycle for 1 or 2 years, and then we're going to start over with somebody new. Trying to, you know, kind of apply that to a relationship that's been in place for a very long time, because the meat part is a very, you know, small portion of a very long relationship, and then the miss part is, in theory, should be as well, and it all falls into that kiss and love, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but trying to go back to that and find ways to kind of go through that cycle, even in a relationship that you've been in for a very long time,
yes,
adds a lot of value, I think, and maybe apply some learnings there for those of us who have been in relationships for a very, very, very long time.
For sure. And that's an interesting perspective too, because you realize the longer you're in a relationship, people change, we all change, we grow. And part of keeping the relationship alive is learning to adapt and adjust to those changes as we age, as the relationship ages, all of that kind of stuff. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. As I mentioned, goes right into the next verse. We're going to play in the sunshine. We're going to get over. I'm feeling kind of lucky tonight. I'm going to find my 4-leaf clover. Before my life is done, some way, somehow, I'm going to have fun. Okay, all right. I'll let you start this one. What do you like about this one? What do you see here that intrigues you, interests you?
I just love the imagery of one repeating playing the sunshine again. So you're really getting that point driven home that this is the activity, this is the assignment for this moment. Um,
You signed up for it. You got to do the
right,
work.
you've already signed on the dotted line. So here's what now we're getting started. And then the notion too, the contrast in saying we're going to play in the sunshine, and then I'm feeling kind of lucky tonight. So again, to your point about the sunshine maybe not being sunshine all the time, but just the brightness of the lights and all of that. But still that sense of joy and lightness and fun. I love the way that he pulls that all together. We're gonna get over. I feel kind of goes back to the line about kick like we used to. There's to me, some interesting cultural language there. Um, because in a sense of how, for example, um, AAVE or African American Vernacular English, we talk about kicking it and so forth, and then also getting over, which goes back even further as being kind of a lyric that you hear in a lot of gospel and spiritual music um, that is more about triumphing over adversity and getting past things that are hard and surviving things that are hard. So I kind of have always heard that lyric specifically in that cultural sense, in that reference. But still, it's not it's not deep and it's not heavy. It's still a very light and um, to me very inspiring imagery that he paints throughout the song, and particularly with this particular section.
Yeah, yeah, good point. Because it's not like so he says we're gonna get over, but it doesn't exactly he doesn't exactly get into the specifics about what
What
or
exactly?
what is it that you have to get over. So you can look at it, you apply it to whatever it is in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and you could just think of it just be successful in life, make it happen, make stuff happen for yourself. And then talking about the luck, throwing in the luck aspect, I'm feeling kind of lucky tonight. I'm going to find my four-leaf clover. Adding those lines is interesting because it seems like he's usually trying to say, you're in charge of your destiny. You make what it is of your life yourself. You don't need drugs or alcohol. You don't need all this other stuff. It just needs you and your focus and your energies. But maybe a little bit of luck wouldn't hurt too. I mean, why not? Why not throw a little luck in there and say, in order to get over, sometimes you need luck. You really do, because there are some people that I'm sure have not gotten over because of some bad run of luck in their life.
Mm-hmm.
There's some things that are just very difficult to get over on, and some luck would be helpful in those cases. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of an interesting way for him to put that in there in a song where you don't necessarily think that he's talking about that or explaining that it's needed in order to have fun or to do it. But why not? What does it hurt to try to take a lucky chance and maybe you'll find that four-leaf clover and get it.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, before my life is done, some way, somehow, I'm going to have fun. And it kind of goes back
Mm-hmm.
to the whole, we got to dance every dance like it's going to be the last time, which was in the first verse. Wanted to make sure that it's understood that, life is finite. It's not never ending. So you don't have forever to figure out how to live your life to the fullest and enjoy it. So, before my life is done, we're going to figure this out. I'm going to have fun. And, whether it takes luck or just takes some hard work, I'm going to have fun. So I
I
like that
love that.
too.
I love that.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I wonder, and this is kind of going down a weird rabbit hole, but in thinking about, for those of us who listen to a song like this in our formative years, Like, I wonder how that, from a, I guess, psychological perspective, impacts how you look at life. You know, if you're listening to things where the person is really talking about finding light and having fun and, you know, living to the fullest, what does that do to you in your developing mind as you're starting to figure out the world around you, versus if you're listening to stuff that's a little bit more somber, or if you're older when you encounter music like this and you've already had like the spate of stuff happening where you don't necessarily have something else in mind about what the possibilities are. Just kind of thinking about,
Hmm.
you know, the impact of music like this on younger minds, and how useful it might be in helping shape your worldview and your perspective of life.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that. And you know what? Rabbit holes, it's all good because we have a reference to a rabbit. We have a reference to a rabbit
Do
later
we
in the
do?
song. So I had to make that connection. But I'm all for it, you know, and that's what this is all about, kind of thinking outside the box a little bit. Before we move on, I did want to just kind of tie up the whole concept, or not really concept, but, you know, the way that Prince started each of these first three verses with "Playing in the Sunshine," kind of reiterating not just the title of the song, but I think he's trying to, in a very simple way, try to kind of tell a story here with these first lines. We want to play in the sunshine, and so then he tells you have to sign up on the dotted line.
Mm-hmm.
We got to play in the sunshine, and he's talking about, you know, this is where he has the little section about, you know, the life cycle of love and the relationship. So at that point, you know, you got to do it. You got to go for it. And now we're gonna play in the sunshine, but at this point, he never says we are playing in the sunshine. We want to, we got to, we're gonna, but it's never like we are playing in the sunshine. He never says that
Hmm.
quite yet. So I
That's
wonder if
true.
he's still talking about like this is a concept that needs to be implemented, not necessarily something that is already taking place, because he keeps acting like he's you know, striving for this or wanting to do this. Before my life is done, I'm going to have fun, which to me tells me that he hasn't quite gotten there yet, or isn't quite to where he wants to be, but he sees it, you know, in his mind's eye,
Mm-hmm.
he sees it, and it's going to happen for himself. So almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy he's trying to put out there in the world, which I guess maybe if you think about how his life was in late 1986, and not to get like too deep into, you know, his personal life when he wrote this song and recorded this song, but the revolution had just broken up. He was about to end his relationship with Susanna. Whether or not he knew it when he recorded the song, I don't know. Only those two know, you know, what their life was like together in November of
Mm-hmm.
'86. But this is it's on record as this being the last time that Susanna ever recorded anything with Prince. So, and I believe it was the very end of '86 is when they broke up. And I know this
Mm-hmm.
because I covered Wally, the song that he did off the vault. It ended up on the Sign of the Times vault track, and that was kind of one
Mm-hmm.
of those response songs to his breakup. And that was recorded in December. So just, you know, a couple of weeks later, he was already singing a really kind of sorrowful song about a relationship ending. So
Yeah.
kind of makes you wonder if like he's singing the song and it's so joyous and it's making the listener happy, but you wonder how happy he was in this moment, and he was just kind of like, if I sing it, if I put it out there in the universe, maybe I will be this happy in a year from now, or whatever,
Mm.
6 months from now. This is what I want, and I'm not there right now for whatever reason. Also a rabbit hole. So
Yes,
thought
yes.
I'd explore that, and listeners can just, you know, tell me to, it's not that deep, man. Stop it. But I like doing that kind of thing every now and
Same.
then.
I do too.
It's
Might
fun.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, we have all the resources available to us. We have these people talking about their time with Prince, and at this time, his engineers and bandmates, and people that knew him and can speak to, you know, his frame of mind at the time. And so we might as well kind of listen to him and utilize their insight, because
Hmm.
Prince isn't around anymore to kind of tell a story. Not that
And I don't think he would, even
I
if he
was
were.
just going to say that. I was just going to say that. He's, you know, the fact that he was writing an autobiography at the time is just mind blowing. Okay, so moving on then in the lyrics, the next at this point he does have a little bit of a break. He does say he's playing the sunshine, and you got just very small amount of music in between the lines, which makes sense because now the whole lyrics, the verses kind of go off in a different direction, in my opinion. Like they start getting a bit more abstract in there than the thoughts that he's putting out there, and these maybe deserve a little more attention than the first three from a dissection standpoint. We're gonna love all our enemies till the gorilla falls off the wall. We're gonna rock him. We're gonna roll him. We're gonna teach him that love will make him tall, so tall. Okay. All right. So where do we begin with this one? So the structure changes. He's no longer leading off with we're gonna or want to or whatever, got to play in the sunshine. He's not even talking about playing in the sunshine anymore, at least not in the literal words he's putting out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the line that probably causes the most head scratching would be the till the gorilla falls off the wall, right? I mean, that's the line most people
Like
look
the
at
what?
and like, what is he talking about here? It's got to mean something, right? Maybe, maybe. So I don't know. I'll let you start with that one if you don't mind. If you have any thoughts on that, otherwise I threw out a potential theory, but boy, it's a stretch.
I think it's ironic that in the first verse we talk about not needing a margarita or ecstasy, and then we get to this really lovey space that kind of evokes how you might behave when you take an ecstasy. But anyway, like
Yeah.
I do not know this from personal experience because I've never used it, but certainly talking to friends who have, and they are always like, ecstasy kind of makes you just hella touchy-feely and lovey. And so it's interesting to me that you've got this, at the beginning of the song, you've got this edict that we don't need these things to make us free and happy, and yet you have a reference that is not a direct reference, but it's certainly evocative in some ways of what you might experience, including there's a gorilla on the wall. I don't think that the gorilla part. Well, let me start over. Let me go back. The love all our enemies, I think, is absolutely right along every other common theme for Prince. It's something that exists in every era of his life. From a musical perspective, this call for unity, this call for love, this unconditional love that does not rely on anything other than just the fact that we are. So it makes sense thematically with this song as well. And then as we start to get into some of the more obscure or sort of fantastical imagery, it almost feels kind of Alice in Wonderland-y. Like now we're kind of going off in our imaginations about all of these figures or ideas that are larger than life or rather fantastical, but they still, at the end of the day, represent, just this need for love and freedom and light and togetherness that I think is what the song is really trying to drive forward. I have absolutely no idea, though, what the gorilla reference is. I don't know if that's, it's obviously, again, not literal, like there's not an actual gorilla, but like, what is that meant to mean? And maybe it's a similar, in Prince's mind, perhaps similar to like what we say about the elephant in the room. So like the big thing that people are trying to avoid. I don't know,
Yeah, maybe. I mean, gorillas are big, right? I mean, they're the beasts of the primate kingdom, so they're big, bad, strong. King Kong comes to mind, and his size. Also, you get imagery. I get imagery, at least, also of the use of the metaphor monkey on your back. Like if you have something that is bothering you, or that is not really bothering you, but something that is kind of preventing you from, again, achieving your goals. And if a lot of times it's used in reference to drug or alcohol addiction, to kick the monkey off your, or shake the monkey off your back and basically beat addiction. That's how it's very commonly referred to as. And that, again, that could be a stretch, but I'm just thinking, like, what are some images that I get in my head when I hear gorilla? And the way it's used, he's basically saying it's something that they gotta basically knock some sense into them. We're gonna rock them. we're gonna roll him, and we're gonna teach him that love will make him tall. Make him tall. Okay. I mean,
It's a
gorillas are
gorilla.
already pretty tall, so I guess. But I think it's just. I think you're on the right track, and I think combining that with just the thought that gorillas are big, they're bad, they're can be mean, not easy to tame, not easy to control, and so you just gotta. If you have one of those in your life, whether it's a person, place, or thing, and that you just have this gorilla that you need to either remove or teach them the fun and funk way of Prince, and say we're gonna we gotta get this gorilla of yours on the same page as the rest of us if you're gonna
Yeah.
achieve this happiness and allow yourself to play in the sunshine, because he might just be this big shadow over you all the time that prevents you from even enjoying the sun when you're outside. So
I like that.
yeah, I'm open to any other alternate takes from anybody listening. So if you have like, yeah, no, gorilla means this, dude. So
Seriously, 'cause I have no idea. I have never in the 30 something years that I've been listening to this song, I've never been able to figure out exactly what the gorilla reference is. But, I will also say that, as a songwriter, from my own perspective, I understand the use of, metaphor and so forth and so on. And sometimes even with songwriting, you kind of just throw something in there and not really throw it in there unintentionally, because absolutely with Prince we know that everything was intentional, but you might call on different kinds of imagery or language use that isn't quite so on the nose or such a linear narrative. So that's why I always kind of think of like this Alice in Wonderland imaginatorium thing happening in his head, that may have just been like, yeah, let's just go with that. But that's actually exactly what I'm trying to say. And everybody else may be puzzled by it, but I know what I mean when I say it, you
well,
know?
yeah, you're totally, I think, on a very astute path there, because the next grouping of lyrics are: pop goes the music when the big white rabbit begin to talk. And the color green will make your best friend leave you. It'll make him do the walk. But that's cool. Because one day, every day will be a yellow day, and let's play. So Alice in Wonderland,
Wow.
White Rabbit, I mean, you're right on the money
Yeah.
there. So I think the most common, when people think of White Rabbit or you hear the words White Rabbit together, there's like two things people think of primarily, and I'm open to others as well, of course, but you've got the song White Rabbit from Jefferson Airplane from the 60s, which is a very
Hmm.
psychedelic, drug referencing song, but what they're talking about, even, the songwriters there say that they took their inspiration from Alice in Wonderland. So it kind of all goes back to Alice in Wonderland at the end of the day when we're talking about the White Rabbit, as a reference. And back to the whole psychedelic drug thing. So yeah, he mentions don't need ecstasy, but then he throws in these references in the second
You're like, are
second
you
section of the
sure?
song that do have psychedelic connotations to them, no matter how you line it out. So it's
Yep.
it's I mean, it is what it is. So pop goes the music when the big white rabbit begin to talk is a very kind of interesting couple of lines that people can apply or just kind of talk about their own theories of what he's talking about here. Pop goes the music. I mean, I really don't. I don't have a whole lot of insight there, other than just throwing some kind of interesting references to Alice in Wonderland to kind of keep going down this path of abstract thoughts. Um, I don't know if you have any other thoughts about White Rabbit, but if you don't, well, first of all, do you?
The only other, I wasn't aware of the Jefferson Airplane song, so I have to go check that out now. Definitely think that, considering Prince's age, that could have very well been a song that he would have been familiar with and would have heard and may have, had some kind of inspiration from. But also, and of course, Alice in Wonderland. But for me, again, considering my age when I first encountered this song, I always imagined the big white rabbit as like literally the Easter bunny. So that's what it always looked like in my mind, and not, I'm late, I'm late, I'm late. But I think it's interesting taken as a whole, taking that entire verse as a whole. First of all, with the Pop Goes the Music, I've always thought was his take on Pop Goes the Weasel, which is probably where anxiety started for so many of us, because the whole, you're winding up this thing and then the pop goes the
Hmm.
weasel, but also the word pop and the way that they say it. It's you've got this song that's already very busy musically. It's loud and it's bright and it's fast and it's active, and then you've got pop, and that adds kind of another dynamic element, which I think is interesting. I don't know what it signifies, but again, it shifts the energy ever so slightly once more, and then you kind of continue on this sort of psychedelic imagery ride. But I think it's also curious to note that you've got the big white rabbit, and then the reference to the color green, which obviously I think we would all understand as being jealousy and envy, and how that can ruin friendships, and certainly we all know that. And then we end with the yellow day, which again is something else that comes up quite a bit in Prince's writing. And I referenced that, I think, in my um, Twitter thread about the song, because it's always kind of like the idea of the yellow day is, I guess, for lack of a better term, it's whatever the best day of your life is. Like it's kind of the utopia, if you will, in Prince language and imagery. So,
Yeah.
but it's interesting now as we're taking the lyrics apart to see that we're starting with the white rabbit, and then the color green, and then the color yellow. And I'd be like, if Prince were still here to talk us through this, I would be so fascinated to hear him talk about how those colors came to him, and
Hmm.
why, and why, and that, does it mean something more than just, words that you're using to describe a feeling? Is there a reason behind the sequencing of those colors? That would all just be so fascinating to know, or if anybody else knows if
Yeah.
there's any significance, symbolic significance to that.
Yep. Yep. This is definitely the color verse for sure, where he throws those colors out there. Do you think that talking about envy and then throwing out there that it'll make him do the walk, but that's cool?
Oh
Is
my
that any
God. Oh
reference
my
to
God.
Morris Day?
I never even noticed that. Probably because Prince was petty, and and it's funny because some friends and I were literally just a few days ago on Facebook talking about how much we enjoyed Prince being petty, because he was funny with it. He was funny, and then sometimes very, not funny in the sense that it's hurting people's feelings, but his petty game was marvelous. And even in his lyrical references, I think now that you pointed out, it probably was,
It
you
just feels
know,
too coincidental, or
and it,
feels too much like can't be just coincidental. Yeah.
yeah. And considering, 86, although, everything with the time that had kind of already been over for a while, it
Yeah, a
still was
couple years.
probably not fully over.
Yeah, when you think about it, it was about 2 years. It was like late '84 when the
Hmm.
time broke up, because, it was during the whole promotion of the Purple Rain movie and everything, and they were already done. He was done with, Morris, that is, was done with the time. But 2 years isn't really that long. Think back to
No.
2 years ago. Yeah, it feels, maybe right now is not a great reference point to think of 2 years ago when it's pre-pandemic and everything. But as adults, 2 years is nothing.
It's
It,
nothing.
it goes so fast. And for Prince, in writing the song in late '86, thinking back to
Mm.
just 2 years ago, Morris Day was a close friend of his, and things did not end well between them. A lot of jealousy and a lot of envy, and it's not all Morris's fault. I mean, there was
No,
fault
Prince,
to go on both sides
definitely.
for sure, at least from every account that I've ever read or heard.
Sure. And of course,
But
Morris was starting to work on solo stuff around that same time. So I could definitely see it being a bit of a dig.
yeah, I mean, The Walk and Cool were two time songs that Prince wrote for Morris, and kind of, so he didn't cite Morris's solo stuff at this point. He's citing like, I wrote the song. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for you, and now you're jealous and envious of my success, even though without me. I'm just paraphrasing. I don't know if this is what Prince was thinking, but I can see him kind of like in his head. You're leaving me, but why are you famous to begin with?
Exactly. Why do people
Yeah,
even know your name? It's because I did. Yeah.
yeah,
That's a really, yeah, I could see that. And he's so clever to couch it that way that, all these years later, we're just like, oh my God.
make him do the walk. All right, so I'm sure it'd be interesting to know if anybody else out there. I'm sure other people have thought of that as well. It can't be the first. Let's see, what do we have next in terms of lyrics? So really, actually, after that, there's not a lot of new lyrics. So I mean, there's a lot of song left, and if this was anything more than just a lyrics podcast, we'd have a lot to talk about in terms of music, what's going on. I mean, they talk about play a lot. He repeats, "We're going to play in the sunshine. We're going to get over. Feeling lucky tonight. Going to find my four-leaf clover." That's repeated. "Before my life is done, I'm going to find some way to have fun." And there's a couple of things that I did want to point out towards the end. Well, not in the second half of the song for sure, that are unique. They're not necessarily so much lyrics as they are just kind of fun breakdowns. One is the whole play, and when him and Susanna are basically fighting. Prince, I like to call this is the part of the song where Prince gets bullied into having fun. Because she's like, play, and he just said, no, play,
No.
no, come on, play, no. And finally, like, yeah, like he's like, fine, I'll have fun if you insist.
It's a very cute exchange. I've always liked that part. That, going from him yelling, let's play at the end of that verse that we were just talking about, and then into kind of the chorus again, and then that breakdown where, it's play, play, play. I love that. It's
Mm-hmm.
a lot. It definitely is fun, and it just feels like that part kind of reminds me of like when you're little and your friends are out, you and your friends are out playing, and you decide to like run down a hill really fast and you just lose control of yourself, and maybe you fall, or you just can't like stop your legs, but that's so much fun, and you kind of crash at the end, but it's when you're in the moment doing it, it feels like there's just nothing that's ever going to be greater than just this moment of complete abandon, and that's what that part feels like.
Yeah, for sure. It's he gives in to the pressures of playing, but he does so in a way that you're just kind of like you feel like he's being lifted up, in the air by all of his friends. Like, yeah, we got him to play,
Yes, yes.
and this is going to be the best time ever. And the way he screams it, it just makes you smile.
It's
I mean, I guess
wild.
that's the intent. If the intent is to make you smile while you're listening to it, kudos, because it works every time for me.
And I think it's also interesting that, especially with the Sign of the Times super deluxe that we've just dissected over the past few months, that, for example, the concept of fun is another commonality. It's another through line for his work. I was really struck, for example, listening to the Power Fantastic cut that's on that particular on the deluxe set, and where he's giving the direction to the band and they're getting ready to record, and he's like, just have fun, this is the fun
Yeah.
version. And it's like, this is such a not fun song, sir. Like, what are you talking about? This song is so emotional. What are you talking about? Have fun. But it's a very interesting thing that I think, again, from I guess a psychological perspective or an emotional perspective, that even when you are embarking upon something like recording a song that's so heavy and emotional, there is this space for you to enjoy and to have fun and to find the beauty in it. So yes, lyrically and sonically, that particular song is not a happy song, but yet there is fun to be had in making it come to life. And
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that Prince was really consistent in his music. And even, if you read or hear interviews that he did in his life, particularly, post the 80s, where he started to talk to people more, that he frequently references this notion of fun, you know? So Play in the Sunshine is not the first place where he's talking about it, but it seems to really become more and more front and center as a life principle, I guess, a guiding principle for him.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a great commercial for that way of life, right? You know, join me in my pursuit of happiness. This is you get to listen to songs like this. You know,
Right.
if
Run
you
around.
yeah, run around and play and listen to
Be
songs like "Play in the
crazy.
Sunshine." And we're gonna have the drummer do his thing, drummer. That's fun part two. The song kind of ends, you know, they bring it all down, like, you know, it's kind of like the come down part
Mm-hmm.
as it kind of fades out, or, you know, ends to go into Housequake, which is the next song, and I think he says something along the lines of "Let's get out of here." You hear him saying that, and Susanna's like, "Yeah, you know, I think," and it just kind of like, we did our thing, you know, we came, we had fun, we conquered. Now it's time to break. This isn't going to last forever. I've got other things I want to say on this album, this long double album. We allotted 5 minutes for play. Now we got to move on and dance.
Get back to work. Let's go.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and Housequake is a dance song. Not that, you know, Play in the Sunshine obviously can be a dance song as well, but it's a little less like focused on the funk so much as Housequake is. So, all right. So Rhonda, that brings us to the end of the song. Do you have any other comments you wanted to make about the song before we go?
So first of all, I have always loved that ending. I love Susanna's voice on it. I love the little weird, it's very psychedelic as well, which kind of keeps with the theme of the unintentional, we don't need ecstasy, but perhaps we do.
You don't need it, but we might, you know.
Maybe we don't need it, but we're going to keep it handy. No, but I've always loved that, the way that it sounds, because again, it's such a contrast to the rest of the song. And like you said, it is the come down. It's kind of, now we've rolled to the bottom of the hill and we've laughed ourselves into oblivion. And now we're trying to catch our breath and get it together. So we can go do adult things, perhaps, like go to work or pick up the kids, you know, whatever that is. But one of the things that I pointed out in my Twitter thread was the difference in the way the song sounds in the recording versus when it was played live in the Sign of the Times film. Because I think what makes that song even more interesting to listen to is the way it transforms with the band playing with him, with the Sign of the Times band, if you will, playing with him. It really brings out more of the gospel undertones. But then when you get to the end, whereas on the recording, you've got this really sort of, you know, psychedelic, everybody's just sort of swaying in the middle of the floor feel. In the film version, the live version of the song, it feels more like almost an R&B slow jam. So you still get that contrast in sound, but it changes a bit. And I've always found that to be very interesting. And again, if I had had the opportunity to, you know, talk to Prince at some point, I would have wanted to ask him a question like, what was the intent behind changing how it sounded? Did that just happen naturally? Or was there a reason why there is that sonic difference at the end of the song between the album version and the live version? Because you certainly could have, you know, replicated that same vibe from the album to the stage, you know, but why did it change, or and how did it change? Like, what was the reasoning, if there was a reason? You know, maybe that's just how the jam happened. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the only theory I would have is just his band, you know, at the time was kind of influenced him to, you know, he's like, I have this amazing band with me. Maybe we'd take the song in a different direction now at the end.
For sure.
Just a theory. For
sure.
Well, thanks for bringing up that. That's a good insight. You know, I don't do the live songs, but certainly anybody who's a fan of the song, a fan of Prince, probably has heard or watched the movie and then listened to how he recorded and played the song live on the Sign of the Times tour. And picking out those differences does make it interesting, you know, kind of the recorded versus live aspect when artists make changes like that and how they perform live, it does make you wonder, like, what was the reasons behind that? What are the thoughts behind that? Sometimes you think it's because what was done in the studio might be too hard to replicate, but I don't think that, to your point, I don't think that was the case
Not
here.
for Prince.
No,
For some
right.
other artists, maybe, but for Prince, it was like, what?
Yeah,
Do
I
this
mean,
in my sleep,
yeah,
literally.
could have easily replicated that at the end, just instead of Susanna, Kat or Sheila or somebody like that doing the kind of the back and forth with him at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the music is doable as well. All right. Well, gosh, we're already at the end. Play in the Sunshine. Great song. Great song. Would you mind sharing with the listener where they can find your music?
Sure, thank you. My website is rhondanicole.com, and I have links to all of my music there. I am on Bandcamp. I'm on Apple Music, Spotify, pretty much everywhere, all the streaming platforms. And I will take a moment to just, kind of have that shameless plug and just say, I am an independent artist. And so thank you in advance for your support. And, any person, who gives it a listen, I deeply appreciate. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Of course. And I hope the listeners will check out your music.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for joining me today, taking time out of your day to join me, Rhonda. And this has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. You can find the Press Rewind pod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I also have a blog, pressrewind.net. You can find me and find some of the musings I have on Prince and music in general there. Hope you'll find me on Discord. Discord server link is going to be in social media, all my social media platforms. And until next time, thank you and goodbye.